No, you're doing everything great. And usually
Good.
it says we're live right now. So I'm
Okay.
going to assume we're live. What I'll do is in a minute, I'm going to go to the John Small Talk Live. I want to have the app open as well because the Small Talk app open just to see because it usually.
I typed my name wrong. That's great. Can I change that? It says
don't
Ab
know.
H. I have a typo.
You do? Oh, I
In
saw
the
that.
right
Yeah.
name. And
I should
it's in
have
the.
been more aware of that. Well, at the very least, we're recording, so I'll post this as a.
Wait. Oh, yeah. I can edit display name. There we go. There.
I really hope we're live.
Like, right, I can't see that typo. I'm like a type A eldest daughter. That's going to make me insane.
All right, so first of all, let's see if this is working. I'm going to go to my Small Talk app, and I'm going to see if when I open it up, do I appear? Right now, I don't appear to be on the app, which annoys me, which I might have to send you a new link, but I can do that in a second. And I apologize.
It's really
thank you for being my, actually, no, we're live.
We are? Great. Let me know if you need me to look something on my phone or whatever too.
No, close test run. It says we're dismissed. All right, let me just see something. It says we're live with 9 viewers, although I don't see us.
Great. I mean, I got the email went out from.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, I see it in my inbox. Oh yeah, I see us.
I see us.
Me looking at my phone on my phone.
All right, let's assume we're live right now. This is great live television. I love it.
Remember it?
What I want to do is I want to be able to see. I know, remember that back in the day. I want to be there. We are. I want to be able to read our. So we have 12 people watching, and I want to be able to see our comment. Okay. It's really that see, this is great. This is live. This is here.
Friday afternoon. Well, midday for you, I guess.
Yes. All right. So we are going to pretend like we just logged on, and hello, our 12 so far viewers that are dealing with us. Abby Gardner, welcome to Small Talk Live. I guess it has a name. And look, I have music now. This is Friday. Friday, we're in love.
Yes, it is.
Yes, this is my new theme music, which the Cure did not give me permission to use, so I'll probably get in trouble. But anyway, it is wonderful to have you.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun. I've never done a Substack Live, so I was so excited, and I love everything you do, and I love.
Thank you. Me too. Feeling is
Gen X, like carving out a little space,
right,
on this internet for ourselves.
It happened, yes, and I feel like there's not enough access to Gen X content. We've just been sort of rendered obsolete and irrelevant, and we've done so many great things, continue to do so many great things. It just seemed like there needed to be more space for us. And so I'm excited, and I like to find fellow Gen Xers that are also very active on media, and you are so much so. You have a great Substack.
Some might say too much.
Some might say too much. You have a great Substack called We Have Notes, which is so fun. And if I didn't know that you were Gen X, I would think you were like a Gen Zer because it's so well like executed, and you got all the right like memes in there and like clips, and you are very up on like the new way to do stuff and the technology and stuff. How do you stay so relevant? Like you're just a kid at heart, right? I guess.
I am so much a kid at heart. Like I've always been really in, like when I was a youth, you know, obviously our youths had but I've always been really into like younger pop culture, as well as like, I mean, I am both like a Swiftie and like a lady of the canyon, you know, like I think all these things can like coexist. I mean, I was like a teenage Deadhead. I still love the Dead, obviously, but like Dead and Co. But I just have always really loved like YA books and all the things that I love from my generation, but also I kind of am a little bit generationally confused, I think, but so glad I'm Gen X and very Gen X in like all ways inside of myself, but I'm chronically online. I don't have kids.
Right.
I've always loved
I have kids and I'm chronically online, which is a problem. But anyway, we're all addicted.
But I mean, it's just like I have time to consume, and I've always loved consuming pop culture. So I loved reading every magazine when I was a kid. I mean, my mom would take me to the whatever drugstore had like the best magazine rack. Like I was, you know, just like it's always been my thing, and so I kind of just turned it into a more official thing in some ways.
Well, it's great to be able to make a living doing what you love, or at least,
At
covering
least
what
part
you
of
love.
it, part of the
Part of
living.
it.
Yeah.
I know. Let's talk a little bit about your origin, like how you got into magazines in the beginning and writing. So you told me right before we logged on that you're from Indiana originally. And so
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. And so how did that, like growing up, tell me about your growing up and how you kind of made the transition into sort of the New York publishing world.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up in like suburban Indianapolis, like a very like nice middle class neighborhood that was like a new kind of, it was all young families, growing up, and like my parents got that house when I was 6 months old, and we rode our bike, it's like very like rode our bikes there was a neighborhood pool. That's where I worked when I was a teenager. Really ride the bikes around, come home when like
those were the
Barb
days.
McConnell next door our neighbors, Mrs. McConnell had a really good whistle. So when you could like hear the whistle, it was like the Gardner and McConnell kids had to come home. So it was like it's just like very normie kind of like 80s, like childhood. But I mean, I had like unfettered access to whatever television was like around at the time. I remember, I obviously MTV and like getting cable was exciting. And I watched Dallas every Friday night with my mom and the aforementioned Barb McConnell next door with their white wine spritzers. I mean, I was like obsessed, like, it's that kind of thing I always say, like, we just like watched what our parents watched, but I really did. And I was like obsessed with the Ewing family and Dallas and soap operas and like all this, like just everything I could get my hands on. I'd read the Soap Opera Digest. I would read the like TV Guide, People magazine. My aunt would bring over after she read it each week. Like, so I would read that. I just always was like, I was a really voracious reader too of books, and like reading books. I find this to be very common in like my female friends of like my generation, reading not only like all the like Flowers in the Attic VC Andrews stuff when you're like 9, but also I was like reading Danielle Steele at like 10 and like Eric Segal's The Doctors. It's been my new obsession.
Like kind of racy stuff, right?
Like really racy stuff. Like, and just like nobody, I just grab it off the shelf in the basement where my mom had like tons of books. And I think it was like, she's reading. That's great. And then I really got into magazines as like a adolescent. So I got everything. But Sassy is like the definitive, like that was a real turning point for me in kind of like falling in love with magazines. Like I read 17 in YM and eventually worked at YM, which is crazy. But then Sassy was the thing that like, I was like, wait, like, what is this? This is talking to me in a different way. And it sounds more like, then when I started reading it, I was younger. I was a younger teen, or like I was probably middle school. So they were like, it seemed like the coolest, like older girls. But also just like this. Yeah. Like they sounded like people. Like,
I had Jane on the call on the Substack Live. I don't know if you saw that episode.
I haven't watched it, but I saw it and I was like, I gotta watch that. And then I realized I didn't watch it this morning. And
I was kind of amazing. Like I was sort of like, you're kind of like an idol of mine in a way. I mean, I didn't read Sassy when I was a teen. It didn't have that influence on me, but I did work at a teen magazine later in my life called Twist. And we would just hover over old issues of Sassy and try to figure out what she got right. It's like kind of hard, almost. It was like capturing lightning in a bottle, because everything was right. The timing, the authenticity of it, just like the originality.
Yeah.
It was
and she had like the moxie to be doing that at like 6 years old.
She didn't know any better. Yeah.
And I love Jane so much. We're still
that's
cool.
so great.
Like, so then I went to work at like my first magazine job was at Jane. So it, like my head like exploded, but anyway, so I kind of fell in love with all
meeting
that.
your idol, did it kind of freak you out a little bit?
Oh, 100. I was like dying, and I had like not done anything, I was like already, so I basically was like obsessed with all of this, but I also was like, I'm going to be a sports medicine doctor when I grow up. Still find that endlessly fascinating, but I think it was very much like, I thought I was supposed to want something like that. And then I realized I went to Duke for college, and I was like, I don't want to sign up for like pre-med classes. Like this feels like a huge commitment that I'm like not ready to make yet. And I knew you could like change later, but I was like, this doesn't feel Right. And so, and I've always been like a books, reading, writing, AP English, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I was an English major, and then I was like, I'm going to work in magazines. And so
Were your parents not thrilled about that decision?
they've always been very supportive, but there was like a running joke, especially by like the end of college, because it was like like late 90s. And, a lot of my friends, especially at a school like Duke, like all these people were getting recruited to work at like investment banks and like McKinsey consulting or whatever. And they had jobs like secured before it was even second semester of senior year. And I was like, so, how I like asked you guys that if I could do an internship in New York last summer, which I did. I interned at Interview Magazine.
Oh yeah.
The summer before my senior year in college, and like lived in the city. And then I was like, so I'm not going to have a job, but I'm going to need to move to New York without a job because I can't get a job in this industry if I'm not there. They're not like flying me out for an editorial assistant interview. And obviously we didn't have any of this like technology to do like a Zoom interview. And I was like, so along with that, I'm going to need to like, be able to live and maybe we were not wealthy, but my parents, I knew I was very lucky to have like a little support. But my dad would always joke like, so no, we don't even want to like do an interview with like one of these other places. And I was like, no. And then also I will be paid probably less than my tuition for last year. Like if I do get one of these jobs,
yeah, I think they've always $20,000 a year was the starting salary for an editorial.
Yeah, I think my first, I think at Jane, I think my starting salary was $23,500 a year.
Right. That was probably, when was that? Like, so that was probably
I graduated from college in 98.
Okay.
And then I was home for like a couple months, and then I moved. But actually, the first job I found was like, I found it in the New York Times classified section. I couldn't find. I would go through the masthead and write down names in a notebook and like send letters, like cold call. Email existed, but it wasn't like everyone's email address was like published somewhere, or that it was like the way that everything was done, in 1998, it was still like teetering in this, like I'd used
I remember college, that, yeah. AOL, it was AOL time.
Yeah. And like, I probably still had my, edu, my duke.edu address or whatever. And so it was a PR job. I went in and interviewed for it. The office was in Soho. So I was like, cool. This woman it was this little agency, and it is one of the most like bananas places I ever worked. I still have a friend that I met there. It's like one of those trauma bonds.
Little tangent here, but you wrote about that 90s cover. I think it was New York Magazine or something about the 90s publicists. Remember that came out? You wrote about that on We Have Notes?
Power Girls.
The Power Girls. And I have to say it brought back a lot of memories because we had hired Lizzie Grubman to do our PR for Twist magazine. The second time I've mentioned Twist, I probably haven't talked about Twist.
I love that. I mean, I don't get to hear about Twist that much
Twist
anymore,
magazine,
but I am familiar. I am very familiar with.
And Twist. Lizzie was like one of these power. We decided we needed somebody who could like really put us on the map. And Lizzie Grubman was like this kind of New York like icon at the time. She was probably like 25 years old now. I remember her walking into her office in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. She was on her phone. She was like, and you tell them to like, it was like she was walking into her office on her phone. We sort of thought that maybe she planned like to just make sure I'm on the phone when I walk in. I have to.
I would definitely see her doing that. Like 100%.
Yeah. Now, Lizzie, I don't know if she's watching, probably not, went on to become infamous for, I think, an accident in the Hamptons where she backed into somebody in her car and seriously injured somebody, or did she kill them? I can't remember something.
I don't think anybody died because
nobody died.
There was like I don't know if anyone even got like crazy serious. I mean, it's not good.
Right.
But, like,
it was a bad situation.
People were okay. So then it became like, well, it was a different time too. I mean,
it was a different time.
The New York Post certainly had a good time with it.
Yes, that was you were canceled. Those were the days when you were canceled by Page Six and the New York Post. So she was definitely canceled. She became the symbol of everything that is wrong with the Hamptons and with white privilege in New York City. And so she was targeted.
It was like at one of those, like, I forget which club it was, but everyone knew the name of the place at the time.
Right.
If you've ever been to if you were in the city, you like, even if you hadn't into the Hamptons, you like knew it was
So
like
what?
Steven Stockhouse or something like, but it wasn't
Yeah,
Steven
it was
Stockhouse, but it was something.
horrible. I hated it. I hated the Hamptons. I was a Fire Island guy, but anyway, that's a whole different
I
story.
was a
But
Montauk girl. I was a
oh, good.
Montauk girl, but when Montauk was like not like the rest
Yeah,
of the
what it is now.
because
Right.
now it's different. But like
Yeah.
it used to be like groovy. I was introduced to it by my friend Gwen Flamberg, who was also a magazine person, and she went out and it was like really groovy people from the city. It was a lot of magazine people, and it was so chill. We were at the East Deck, and it was like that 70s beach motel, like right on the beach. And it was so chill in Montauk. It was
Yeah,
so,
Montauk was the chill one. Well,
and then
Fire Island was too, and in people, when I say Fire Island, most people think of the gay Fire Island, which there was a whole Fire Island is like this little microcosm of Manhattan, where it's this tiny little
yeah,
island, all these little neighborhoods. So there's like the gay neighborhood, there's a family
like the
neighborhood,
Pines is over here. And
yeah, exactly. All right, but I want to jump back to you. So I will explain.
So anyway, that PR agency eventually they had some terrible beauty client that you've never heard of, but this other woman who went on to have a very good PR career, but she was like, well, I talk to these magazine people all the time. This was kind of my thinking going in too. If I can't get in there, can I get in somewhere else? And eventually she was like, oh, I heard they are looking for an assistant at Jane. And I was like,
wow.
at Jane? Like for Jane Pratt and like Christina Kelly and like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, I went in and I interviewed. I was actually the beauty assistant and I was the beauty / photo assistant. So the beauty department was the beauty director and me, another Jane Larkworthy.
Like, I know Jane Larkin very well.
And then, yeah. And then Carrie Leitzis, yeah.
So, okay. So Carrie Leitzis, does she have a sister?
She has like this really cool agency that she's had for years now. Like she's brilliant, but like she was like a brilliant photo editor. And like, but then I met with both of them and then they're like, Jane Larkworthy called me back and was like Jane wants to meet you. And I was like,
yeah,
what? I was also like the editor-in-chief like meets an assistant. And now I understand that is so much the ethos of like Jane and how she runs an office and that she cares about it wasn't like I was interviewing to be her assistant. And, and then I went into her office and like I was so nervous. I mean, I felt like I blacked out, but we like sat on the couch and like you've talked to Jane, like it was like that.
I know. I never, well, actually not true because I had done that, but I didn't know Jane professionally. Like I didn't work with Jane. I never worked, but she is, I kind of thought she would be a little bit more of a diva, or I don't know what I thought, but she was not at all what I thought she would be. She's super engaging and sweet and like,
yeah. And that's how she ran the magazine. And so I did understand even then that it was like kind of a special experience. It's still one of my favorite parts of my life professionally and in a million ways. But like, I had friends I made friends that worked at other magazines and it was like, not always like that, like you didn't get to come to the ideas meeting, let alone like have an idea and get to run with it. Or there was obviously hierarchy in terms of like people who had a ton of experience. I learned so much. It was like Jane and Christina Kelly and Bill Van Paris and Suzanne Cologne and Jane Larkworthy and all these people. And then the fashion department, like Sasha Gambaccini, Elizabeth Keister, like these amazing creative people. But we all also like hung out. We were like this scrappy little like startup, but we weren't because we were owned by like Fairchild, which at the time was owned by ABC Disney. But even then we had like it was the offices of Fairchild because that had like Women's Wear Daily and W and Jane as like the kind of glossier. I mean, Women's Wear is not glossy, but you know what I mean? Like industry. And then they had all these other trade magazines like Supermarket News, and we used to be like Zipper Wire Daily over there, but it was an all open floor plan when like that was not the way. And Jane had an office, but it looked out at all of us, and like only a couple other people over on like the W side had an office. So it was like this, we all just like hung out, and then we hung out after work, but it felt like, and it was so voicey and I was just like, I like walked into a dream. I was like a kid. I was like, I can't believe this is happening to me.
So at one point, Jane magazine, and I mentioned this to Jane, she remembers this. So I worked at that time you were at Jane, I was in a magazine called Stuff. It was actually probably a little later. So I was at Stuff at 2001. I don't know if you were still at Jane in 2001. Were you?
That's like when I left.
Because
No,
we
I
had
was,
a double
so
date.
I left around then, and then I was at Allure for like 8 months. It's not my most fun experience. And then and then YM, then Christina Kelly, former Jane person and Sassy person,
Went to YM.
went and was editor-in-chief of YM, and she brought me in as her beauty director. And we had about, at one point, like maybe 9 or 10 old Jane people there. So it felt like this.
Yeah. So the reason I brought that up is because we had a double date. There was somehow we were set up. It was like all the Stuff magazine editors met all the Jane editors at a bar, and we kind of like met.
That sounds like something we would have done.
You guys would have done that. And I think, it was a very interesting night, but it was a fun night.
Was it was Tony still there? Was like Tony Ramondo still at Jane?
I don't think it would have been it would have been all the women and all the guys.
Yeah, Tony always got dragged along with like.
Probably maybe as protection from the crazy Stuff magazine.
He was like our resident. He was the music editor, and then he went on to do like FH. Like he was at some of the Lad magazines for a while. I haven't seen him in forever, but yeah.
So let's recreate for people what it was like working for magazines in the late 90s in New York City. Like it's sort of tried to be replicated in the movies, right? Like there's all these movies like Devil Wears Prada and 30. What is one with Jennifer?
13 going on 30.
13 going on 30. You know them all.
10 Things I Hate About You. Like they're all the cool girls were like a magazine.
Always worked in magazines. They were always
like
editorial.
Kate Hudson and 10 Things I Hate About You. Yeah, it was always a magazine.
How accurate was that, do you think, in terms of the recreation of what it was really like?
It wasn't.
Zero.
No, I mean, I think like some things, like little things, like the way Kate Hudson is like really good friends with the two, like it's like Catherine Hahn and I forget who the other person is, that they all work together and they're like really good friends. Like I made so many of friends I still have forever, like kind of in those spaces. So I think like the camaraderie, but like how a magazine runs, like what apartment you might live in. If
I know the apartment part was ridiculous. Yeah.
Like, and this was like, I mean, when you're talking about the assistant or like Jennifer Garner's character is not running everything at that point. She's just like kind of an editor, right? It's not a junior. She's like a junior editor. It's like, you don't have an apartment on Lower Fifth. I mean, you do if you have family money or something, but like you're not earning
and a lot
that.
of them did.
Like,
and a lot of them did dress incredibly well. That the dressing, at least when I worked at the Condé Nast building, because I worked for Glamour, the Condé Nast building was very, very fancy. And the people that dressed there, but I always imagined that they were just on some sort of clothing allowance or had very rich parents, or because nobody.
Well, I think it was like a lot of people with rich parents. I mean, I think that's one of the things that like it felt like a barrier to entry for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But also borrowing things out of the fashion closet.
Well, let's talk about. Can we just pause? Okay,
putting yourself into credit card debt. I will say I loved, because also Jane, it felt like a little bit indie, so it felt like it was like a groovy. But also all fashion felt groovier to me.
But I tell people about the beauty and the fashion. So for people who didn't experience this, you were a beauty editor, so you had access to the beauty and probably the fashion closet. But let's explain the beauty closet, because the beauty closet was an unbelievable thing that people have to understand. So you would get, you can explain it, but basically the premise is that you would get, as an editor of a major magazine in New York, you would get every single beauty product known to man sent to you for free. And you would just have to store it somewhere, right? So there was this closet of all the greatest. Now, this is why it was great for me. So being the only probably straight guy that worked at Glamour magazine at the time, I would go on these dates, and then I would always ask the beauty editor, hey, who was Susie Yaloff? I don't know if you know her, but she lives out here.
Yeah. I don't know her super well, but I have friends who work for her, and we
So I would ask her, hey, can I go to the beauty closet and just get some stuff, because I have this date and it would be really cool to bring. And it would just go in there. It was like you would go into this paradise. I guess it was like a Sephora on like steroids, better than any Sephora, right? And you would just be like, that looks nice. Is that something that I should give her? And it's just right. I mean, it was just this closet that anybody had access to. Well, not anybody. The beauty editors had
we could run the access. So like even as an assistant, because it was my job to organize the closet. So yeah, anytime. Obviously, if anything was launching, at that time also, like they would say it like a women's magazine, like beauty keeps the lights on, right? Like, and Glamour kept the lights on at Condé Nast, and beauty kept the lights, it's like the beauty advertising money, because it was like how everyone made, it was like, it was big, it was booming. And there was, plenty to go around at the time, but also in terms of PR budgets and whatever. So, and the way you're getting to people is through magazines for the most part.
That was the internet.
75 other marketing channels.
Right.
I mean, there's television app, but I mean, in terms of content platforms, it was like magazines and like television shows or whatever. So they would send when something was launching, you'd get it, or there was often like an event or sometimes a press trip to like launch a new product. But also if we're working on something, I would call around, we're doing I'll just make this up, like a red lip story. So I'm calling around to all the brands, PR, we're doing a red lip story, send stuff over. So stuff is coming to you just all the time, but then also you're calling stuff in for like a story, or I need packaging that looks like this or whatever. So it's a mix of like new, whatever. So then it's all stored. Like stuff would be set and we'd be going through it to like, what are we going to shoot? Like, what are we going to, write about? We're going over it with the art team, photo team. And then it's just like stored in the closet. And our Jane closet was a lot smaller than some of the Condé closets. Right. But it was still like, I mean, so I'd have it organized by makeup brand, and like skincare, like everything. So I had unfettered access to it, which was wonderful. I always say it's like, where is this? I had unfettered access to everything when my skin was full of collagen and like, like
now, why do I need
the $200 serum for free now?
Right. And also there was a fashion
I would go in there and grab stuff. Like when I was going out to dinner with a friend, everyone got a goodie bag all the time. Because I would also know, like, if you weren't on the beauty team, maybe you'd be like, hey, Abby, I need to come get some stuff. And I'd go in there with you. Because I would know if like, oh no, I can't get that away, where like we need that for a shoot coming up or like whatever. Or like we would have, because I'm sure this happened when you were at Glamour or whatever, like people would come, like celebrity publicists would bring people by the office sometimes, especially like newer, like up and coming people to meet our Jerry Richter Campbell, who is still one of my favorite people, who was our entertainment director, who booked all the covers and celebrity stuff. So sometimes they would come by. Like I remember I actually took, speaking of Jennifer Garner, when she was not quite Jennifer Garner yet, but so Felicity, obviously a beloved show of mine. I like to say that I love everything that J.J. Abrams created in the late 90s or early 2000s, including Gracie Abrams.
I was going to say, including his daughter.
I was like, including Gracie Abrams, but also Felicity and Alias, and Lost. But Felicity was on, and Scott Foley, who played Noel on Felicity. I am Team Ben, just for the record, for anyone watching, who was played by Scott Speedman. But Scott Foley came by, and he brought his girlfriend, Jennifer Garner, who had a small role as Hannah, his hometown girlfriend on the show. So I took her. She would obviously never remember this, but I do, because I also was like, it's Noel and Hannah. Like I didn't like meet a lot of famous people in my past life as a high school student in Indianapolis, or like a college student at Duke. So yeah, it was cool. And we'd take them in and like give, you can just go pick out whatever you want. She was lovely as you would expect back then.
I mean, these were the little kind of perks. We didn't get paid a lot, but we had perks. We had fashion closet too. We haven't even talked about the fashion closet, which is just.
And we used to smoke cigarettes in the fashion closet.
Oh, really? And then the gear, when I got to men's magazines, for all the guys watching this, it became just the opposite, just for men. And so every like clothing brand and sneakers and, electronics. So that was the perk. Like there was, you didn't get paid a lot, but there were perks in sort of like
in goods and services, also beauty. So like I didn't pay to get my hair cut for a very long time.
I didn't pay for my gym. Like when I was at Fitness Magazine, I didn't have to pay for my gym, and I didn't have to pay for like certain things. I still do that. I'll still call in some freebies every so often, because I'm like, listen, if I'm going to write for this, can I take a trip? I know there's no ethics at journalism, possibly bad ethics journalistically, but you know what?
It's all different now. So it's like I miss this thing that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, because even like there are magazines, there are websites, like it's just not the same. And like also I would say that other perks were like parties, like going to like cool events,
right?
As like, especially as like a 22, 23,
what
24.
What was the best event you ever went to?
Oh, there was like a
party or like a cool
party. We had some really good times like at Jane. I was actually the fashion closet. So it was the night of the Met, but the Met Gala was not like how it is now. It was like this fancy fundraiser for the Costume Institute, which it still is, but it was not like, it was like a cool, more insidery like fashion event. So I didn't get to go to the Met, but there were like parties after. And this was when I was at Jane. So it was like probably 99, 2000 maybe. And I had borrowed this like beautiful Armani dress that had like, it was vintage. It belonged to our fashion director, Shasha Gambaccini. It was like the 70s Armani. And we would always go to Sway. Do you remember Sway? That like it was like a lounge like club, and like the Jane people, we were like there all the time.
Right.
And like
Okay.
sometimes they'd like close, but if we were like with Jane or if we'd been there enough, which I eventually then like they'd make people leave, but then like you wouldn't have to leave. It was great.
That's
So
awesome.
there was some after party there, and I think I told Josh at this, it's fine because it got fixed, but someone like very late night, like spilled a candle and like some of the wax got on the dress. And I was like, what am I going to do? And then that's when I learned about really fancy dry cleaners in Manhattan.
That will
And
do things over.
they
Yeah.
got it fixed. They got it
Okay.
fixed.
That's
Chris French got it fixed for me, but that was like an amazing
French cleaner.
night. Like we had so many amazing nights there. I remember this was when I was at YM, and this was like it was a press event, but it was when JLo launched her first fragrance, Glow by JLo. And it was this, I guess it was like, now I think it was like that. It was like in the Trump Tower that's over by the UN, but it was like that. It's like apartment building. And then they had like the whole like top floor, and they had like turned it into this like seated dinner and then like a lounge. And she like stayed the whole night, and we went through like a receiving line to like say hello. She was lovely. And my coworker, I had brought someone from my team with me, and she was so flummoxed. She just went, "You're so beautiful." As she was shaking her hand. But it was also when we didn't know who, it was like everyone was talking about who she might be dating. And it turns out that we found out a few months later that it had been Ben Affleck. That was when she was quietly dating Ben Affleck, but we didn't know yet. Yeah.
Can I tell my JLo story?
Yes, please.
I don't think I've ever said this story publicly. So I was one of the biggest covers that stuff ever did was they got JLo. Who knows if people were paid? I have no idea, but they were at the time. Stuff Magazine was a kind of the evil sort of lesser step sister or step brother of Maxim Magazine. Maxim got all the great covers. We didn't get anybody. And we
remember that
J-Lo.
whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was the Laddie magazine time. And we got JLo, and it was like literally maybe the 8th month we were even in existence. It was a big deal. And I was assigned the story to write about the profile, like to meet her and everything. And I was super excited. We had to fly down to Miami where she was filming a video, and meaning like just me. And so I stayed at a hotel. What's that really amazing? I don't know. The hotels of the 90s in the Doral or one of those types of hotels in Miami Beach
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And they
like right on the beach, like right on South Beach.
And they rented me.
We went there all the time for like.
Yeah, exactly. It was always South Beach. And Stuff gave me an incredible room because we thought we were going to do the interview in my hotel room. And so we thought it had to be really nice. So I was staying in this incredible room, and everything was just very fancy. And she was also staying in this hotel, and I kept seeing her. Like I would see her like at the pool, but I was too awkward. I even saw her in the elevator, but it was too awkward to say hello because it was like I hadn't really formally been introduced to her, and I didn't want to invade her privacy and whatever. Anyway, I was supposed to do the interview like the next day, fly in, do the interview that morning, fly out that night. 4 days later, she kept us waiting for 4 days. So I mean, I guess it wasn't a horrible experience because I was in Miami for 4 days, but she kept postponing it, and I kept having to stay, and I kept seeing her, but I didn't want to say like, hey, can we do the interview right now? But you know, I kept running into her. So I knew she was like around. So finally, the 4th day later, this guy, Benny Medina, who was her like,
Benny, he's still her manager.
He is? Okay. Yeah. He's like, okay, this guy can come. He's got 20 minutes. He can come. She's rehearsing at a studio in Miami somewhere. And so I drove out to Miami. She was there doing a dance rehearsal. And Benny, I get to the front door, and there's a guy in a black Cadillac just sitting in the back of a Cadillac, and the window rolls down, and he says, you know, all right, you can go in there. She's ready for you now. And so by this point, I was so intimidated having 4 days for this thing. It's the biggest cover of Stuff magazines ever. And I walk in there.
No writer should have to think about something that intensely before you do it.
That was intense. And I sat down with her, and to her credit, she was so nice, and so lovely, and loved that I had worked at Glamour as a Jake columnist. She thought that was so funny, and whatever. Like, we had the best conversation in the world. At the time, this is to date where she was in her career. This is when she was married to her dancer. There was a dancer that
Chris
she met.
Judd.
Chris Judd, exactly.
So that's all right.
That is all. See, I knew you have like a photographic memory of this stuff.
For like weird pop culture. Yeah, I'll be like the third lead on a sitcom that aired for 4 episodes in like 1987. And I'm like, got it.
So
ask what I had for lunch yesterday. I have no idea.
So she was so lovely and wanted to talk about like New York things. Anyway, it would actually turn out to be one of the best like experiences I've ever had interviewing a celebrity. She was super nice.
It feels like stuff like that doesn't happen, or
no, that would never happen anymore. Yeah,
that happened with Christina Aguilera at YM. Like a whole shoot, like a whole thing, because we were supposed to be shooting. Yeah. I wasn't doing it, but my best friend who I met at the magazine. That's why I was like, oh, my best friend is still my best friend. I met.
Are they going to show up? Because people sometimes would just not show up for shoots, and it wasn't like you had deadlines and like print issues had to go to press. So if somebody didn't show up for a shoot, like you'd be totally screwed.
Yeah,
like,
you can't just like push it forever, because it's like the folios and then whatever the managing editor is figuring out over there. Like
and that would happen.
Real deadlines.
Like, people would just like not
move.
Move. I know. Celebrities would just not show up, or suddenly the publicists would have second thoughts, especially working for magazines like Maxim and stuff, which were a little bit like considered to be a little bit racy. And sometimes the celebrity would have a panic attack at the end. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be, in a sexy bikini on a cover of I got it. And it was like, I mean, even when I was shooting Lucy Lawless, who was Xena, the warrior princess, she had a slight panic attack on the set. And
I mean, I get it. And they felt like they needed, and you never know what was going on with like their team and how they had like gotten them to do like,
right. Suddenly they're there.
Like, how much they were into it from the beginning. Like, you don't know. And then anything like that, like being on a set is, you can feel like you're like, even if you're a famous person, but like, I think those sets though are one of the things I miss too, is just like being on like really collaborative, like doing shooting like a beauty well story. So shooting like a 6, like full
and
page.
The money spent was incredible.
And I never felt like I was at like the magazine with the biggest budget, though I kind of love that, because I think it could make for like a lot of creativity, but I was with the most creative people. Like, we had this Jane reunion a couple summers ago, not this past summer, but the summer before. And like, some people got together and started organizing it. And I don't live in New York anymore. And like a bunch of other people don't either. And like, so many people flew in, and we had this like really fun night together and just like reminiscing. And I think that was like, maybe collectively, I've worked with so many other people that I think are wonderful and smart and creative, but like collectively, that group of people was so special. And it was a time when like, you got to take a little more time. Hopefully you got more than 20 minutes with someone for a cover story, or you could send, Jane and I have talked about this, like you could send a reporter, a journalist, a freelancer out, because we would do like these more intense feature stories that I wasn't really working on, but like really newsy, really reported stories. And you could send someone to go like work on it for 3 weeks.
Yeah, for 3 weeks. Well, the idea that I could there was a budget that would fly me to Miami and be able to stay in a nice hotel for 4 days and wait for J-Lo to give me 20 minutes. I mean, it's kind of just unheard of now.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, and now we all had to go work at like brands and stuff. But it was like, I think the mentality that Jane had, which I have taken with me, it is definitely something like I carried with me, and like, is that hire people who are really good at what they do, and then like let them do it. Like, don't like have a vision, have but don't like micromanage their talent out of them, like, and so I actually like teach this, part of this is like, I teach this class now at the media school at IU. They like let me invent.
Cool.
I'm like, this is crazy. But this is my 3rd semester doing it. And a lot of it is about it kind of, I call it, I was like, did I invent my own Eras tour? Like maybe, but a lot of the first part of the class is kind of context setting around like how pop culture used to be like sent out into the world like not that long ago, and like understanding kind of from whence we came to kind of better prepare you for like the million more shifts that are happening. But it's also because all this stuff isn't there, even if you knew where to look for it. Like most of those magazines weren't digitized. Like even we talk about the early blogosphere, because it's the class is called Pop Culture Storytelling and Media. It's like my personality, like put into a class. But I think that like it's good. People need, like the younger people need to understand like kind of what it was like. And maybe I always say to them, like maybe just like a side product is maybe you'll understand your parents a little bit better. Like,
Yeah.
you know, because we talk about MTV, early MTV, like I kind of give them
Oh,
like
what a fun class.
bird's eye view of that. And then we start getting into like stuff now, but also kind of finding those through lines, because the platforms change and the delivery systems change, but kind of we're looking for the same thing in like community and like-minded people. And like I'm like, when blogs started, like early blogs, which you also still can't find, it's not even in like the Wayback Machine if you knew where to look, like a lot of that stuff is gone. And I'm like, you don't understand what that felt like to open up the world, and you could just be like, yeah, writing about this like weird little thing you're into, and then finding out that like 500 other people are into it, but nobody was like doing SEO or like trying to become an influencer. It was just like, oh, you can just like put your ideas really easily onto the internet because now Blogspot exists or whatever. So we talk about a lot of that stuff.
That's
And
so fun. Are you
I give
finding
them
that?
all an old Jane magazine to like
Oh,
borrow
that's
out
so
my
cool.
personal
Now, do you
collection.
find that
Like,
they love this tactile experience now? Like, do they?
mm,
Because I did a show a few months ago where we talked about how like Gen Z and even like the alphas are really interested in like magazines again. Maybe magazines will come back, not at the way they were at one time, but maybe there is just. I mean, I always pray and hope that this kind of digital revolution, it starts getting kind of old and people get kind of tired of all the social media stuff and kind of want to have a more tactile, what they call real world. They have a word for it.
I see it in this small sampling of students that
Yeah.
I have had. This is again, like I started last fall, and actually Jane was my first, like I have people like, you'll have to guest zoom in
Oh,
next
I would
semester.
love it.
I would love to have
We
you.
can talk about being an advice columnist or something. I'll figure out something
I
for you.
would no, that would be great. I love, because part of it is like the stuff that we talk about, and we talk about like audience and like story, you know, all different kinds of storytelling. Now I'm like, a story could be a one sentence Instagram caption, but you
Right.
still need to like, you know, and not just the one you're writing for yourself. I mean, if you were working at a brand or you're working at a publication or whatever, but also like just exposing them to different kinds of like media careers that exist now, and seeing how I'm like, listen, I've had to reinvent myself a million times and things just get faster now. So like, how do you have some sort of core like understanding of like voice and tone and story and
That
content?
never changes no matter what the medium is, right? You
No,
still
you
need,
just have to if you're good at that, then you'll figure out how to like evolve and change. So yeah, I would love to have you next semester. But
well,
Jane was
thank
my
you.
first. We do a class like I do a whole like day on our lecture, I guess. I just, yeah, I'm exactly like this in class. They about like how Jane magazine was kind of like a unknowingly, and at the time I didn't realize, like a blueprint for kind of how we talk on the internet and how internet speak is, in terms of like we were like characters in the magazine. Like it was
Yep.
like you knew everyone by your first name, and like it's kind of the first personness, and like, you know, a lot of those things, like kind of Jane was really ahead of the game in some
I think
ways in
she
terms
was.
of like thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think what she did that was really revolutionary, but doesn't seem as revolutionary now, is that before those kinds of magazines, there was a voice. There was like a kind of common voice of, especially in women's magazines, of like,
Yep.
it was kind of like this fake voice. It wasn't really the way people talked. It was, I don't
Yep.
even know where it came from, but for years, that voice existed. And even when I started working at men's magazines, I remember my editor, who was from England, saying to me, what he handed back a story. He's like, I don't understand. This isn't really you speaking. Like, who is this voice that you like, this weird voice that you've like adopted, of like this kind of like lots of like alliteration
Yeah.
and like puns and like all this stuff that isn't really the way people talk. And he's like, why don't you just write the way you talk? And I was like, that's an interesting thought. That's not really how I was trained, because that's not, I was brought up in a certain system and with a certain voice. And so Jane originally kind of, I think, gave that, like, where magazines were speaking to you the way people talk. And of course now, I think the most sort of maybe popular influencers and stuff. And, there's that horrible word authentic now, whatever, people say that, but it is real. Like if you write, and this is even true with Substack, if you write the way you talk, and she said this in my interview, that I don't understand why people don't write the way they talk.
That's how I was raised.
Yeah.
She raised me. Like she
Right.
raised me before
We're
I met
lucky.
her.
I had to unlearn. I've had to unlearn this darn magazine speak that I was.
Do you know? And I showed this in class, and I sent it to Jane after she zoomed in last fall, and it was it was like on, oh gosh, was it on like the All or something, or like the Toast or something? And it was like fake edits that like a women's magazine editor would give on a piece about like, it was like a
That's hilarious.
I'll send it to you. I'll find it because it does.
Love to see it.
Not on the place where
I'll share it with my.
Existed, but somebody put it on Medium or something. But we used to share it around all the time. You'll understand it so clearly. But it was almost like I struggled in kind of very women's magazine speaky places, because I think naturally, like that's what I'm better at, but it's also like where my early like influences came from either reading Sassy or then being at Jane. Like she talked about this with my class too. And also one of the things, like a bunch of the students were like, oh, I didn't know you didn't have to be mean to have that job. Yeah. And I was like, you don't have to be mean. And that's also how I was like raised by this group of people. And we had words that we were not allowed to use puns unless we were like making fun of the pun, right? Oh, wow. Like hair is hair. We don't use any other words.
Well, that's the problem. Sometimes you would have to say hair so many times you couldn't think of, and other guys too, right? To say, what are different ways to say guys, boys? There were certain words that were like you said so many times in a magazine, and you kept wanting to say.
Yeah. So she was like, you have to get okay with some word reps. Like maybe you can find, but like, because that is always going to get marked by the copy department, right? Remember copy departments? Those were beautiful.
Yeah.
And so nails are nails. They're not talons. Yeah. Like, no one says that. Like no one walks around and says like, my tresses are frizzy today. Like they're not. Like no one. And so that was like how I was trained. And it's where I thrive with my own writing. Yeah.
I think I like to tell my writing, try at least start by writing the way you speak. You're telling this to a friend, right? You're explaining something to a friend, and like write it that way. That's a good place to start. And then maybe
definitely a great place to start. And again, if you're working for some place that has like a really, like I am pretty good at adjusting that. Yes. Like I know where I can be fully me and where I can, like if I've written something for Glamour, it needs to be like, right. You have to work within a brand's voice, but it was such a magazine speak voice back then.
Actually, oh my God. I haven't thought about that in a long time. It's true that magazine speak. Although I'm still fighting it every day in some ways. Like it comes in because I still write for magazines, and I still write for Maxim. And my God, it's incredible that it still even exists, but I still write. I
feel like we're all very good at writing like headlines and subheads.
Yes. Yes, we are. We're sort of, although have you noticed that headlines have changed? So they're not so chat GPT and like, they're all stuck. If you ever try to get them to write a headline, they're stuck in the 90s.
I've never used it, and I never will.
Okay,
I've not ever put a single thing into chat GPT.
Okay, so let me just tell you what happens.
But tell me what happens. I don't even know what it looks like or feels like.
Well, what's so funny is if you have it write a headline, it'll always write it the way we might have written it. And I'm not saying it does it well, but it's
I get it.
Funny headline with a colon, and then and that's actually not at all the way headlines are written anymore, because headlines don't really have those clever puns anymore, because it's about clickbait now. So it's about, the headline has to tell you exactly what the story is or make some sort of promise. That they're more like cover lines, right? Headlines.
They're totally more like cover lines. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And actually they become headlines have become decks. So like
it knows how to do all those colon headlines and stuff because it read all the stuff we did.
Exactly. So it copied all the stuff we did in the 90s.
It read all of our work.
Right. I'm like, please get your head out of the 90s. So ChatGPT is stuck in the 90s. I'm like, man, grow up. But anyway, so it's very interesting.
We have the 90s budgets for magazines back.
Exactly.
That's what I want back.
Well, I think it's interesting you don't use AI. But tell me, okay, you mentioned, and I want to track some of the stuff you said because it's really interesting. First of all, that you said you've had to pivot so many times. I think it's always interesting for people to hear Gen Xers talk about having to reinvent themselves, because I think we find ourselves, especially creative people or people who have creative jobs, we've had to reinvent ourselves many, many times because it keeps changing. Like like, it's just crazy. I mean, if you start in print magazine like us, oh my God, you've had to make so many adjustments. I don't know. I went to the web for a minute and then I had to go into digital video and then I went to podcasting and then I was back in print and now tell me about some of the pivots you've made in your career. Like, what are you doing now? You said you mentioned you're teaching, but I'm curious, like how you've managed to
that's like, it's nice. It's like I'm an adjunct professor. I do one class.
Yeah, that's so
definitely
great.
not for the money. It's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done, and I love it so much. It's not about I am paid, but like that's. And then I make a little money on my Substack. I'm in a place right now where I'm like, okay, let's like really invest brain power in this in a different way. Like the writing's been there, but in terms of like growing it, I haven't like really put a whole lot into like growing it. It's just like doing it is a joy for me. But I'm a copywriter for the health team at Apple right now, remotely. Oh, cool. I work on some like internal stuff. It's like not anything anyone's seen, but it's very nice. And it's not
Does it
like
give you insurance. Is it like a real job?
It's nice. I haven't had that. I didn't have that for a long time. Yeah, the insurance is sick. I like cried when I saw my deductible. Like it was like, I was like, it's this small? What are you talking about?
Right.
Because obviously as like a person who also has gone in and out of media jobs, even back when I had them more steadily, like you'd be freelance for a while. I've dealt with my own insurance in like 500,000 ways that I never thought I would understand. But like my first pivot was YM folded in like 2004. It was real pre-curve before the 2008 like initial like slaughter. It was more based on like, it was owned by Gruner and Jahr. Like you worked at Fitness. Did you work in that 26th Street building? Or was it after?
No, I worked in the Fifth Avenue, but I worked a lot for YM. My first writing jobs were for YM. And in fact, Lori Majewski was on the show recently. Do you know Lori Majewski?
She was We were there a little bit of the same time.
Yeah. So she and so many of my friends worked there, but that was my first sort of writing, like outside of, so we shared a floor. Fitness Magazine and YM and Child Magazine all shared a floor on 110 Fifth Avenue, which was first the New York Times Magazine group and then became Gruner and Jahr. Yeah. So anyway, yes, very familiar with
it. Was more like a G&J. So when I was there, I was in the 26th Street and Fitness was on like the floor above. Like one of my best friends was at Fitness. So anyway, Gruner and Jahr had like, it was like all sorts of stuff going on. So like, anyway, that was the first time. Like I lost a job, and that I loved that job so much. It was like a dream, and so I was sad. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So I was just like, and I was like going through a on and off breakup thing for 1,000 years. And I was just a bunch of my friends also, because I had like magazine friends, but also like entertainment media, like all, like hot, like friends who worked at Miramax, and like there was more studios in New York at the time, and like some had moved to LA. And so I was like, just gonna move to LA. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And so I did like fashion PR for a little bit out there. And then I was like, there wasn't at the time, now there's so much more like web and like the media kinds of things. But in like 2005, that wasn't really like what you could do in LA. So then I was like, oh no, I like pinged back and forth a lot. So then I went back, and then I started working in like digital media. So I was like online, I think earlier than like at a job than some of my friends, because like people were still at their nice magazine jobs.
Magazine jobs, why would you?
So I was at like Fashion Week Daily. I did, and then in like 2009, I was at Fashionista. So I was really like in the online editorial space. So, and I'm glad for, I would have loved, I would have taken a magazine job if I had like found one at that time, but it made me, I've always been pretty fast, like editor, writer, whatever. So that kind of, and then that just like, I honed that ability and kind of like started to, and even in those digital media jobs, like things shifted in terms of what you needed to care about. How much do you get up there? Like, oh, now we have to worry about SEO, like that evolved. And so then I was like, in that space for a while, eventually ending up like kind of back in magazine land, but running digital at like, I like editorial at Marie Claire. And then when I was working for Joanna Cole. So I also like went to LA again. That was for a website that no longer exists, but they did move me out there. That was like a real editorial job.
It's funny that we've never met, because I feel like we probably know.
I know, it's so crazy. We must have 5 billion friends in common.
I know, exactly.
And then I was like, then I came back and was at Hearst, but it was like the way like digital, like it was, you can see just like the mistakes that were made at these big
I know.
companies
I
that
know.
now we're all paying the price for. But it was also when right before like, oh, Zuckerberg says we're pivoting to video. So then it's like, it's like everyone got rid of their writers. But I would have like this 2-person team to run like all of
course,
like their
that's the crazy thing. I was running a magazine a few years ago called Green Entrepreneur, which was part of Entrepreneur Magazine, but it was like their cannabis business magazine, which is crazy because I don't even smoke cannabis. But I was running this magazine. It was like a real print magazine, like with like, a TOC, and like it was kind of a job that I would have wanted 20 years earlier. Like it was a crazy job. I mean, but we had a staff of 2 people, and I was like, how is this possible that the same magazine, we're putting out a magazine, and I had a staff of like 150 people when I was at Glamour just 10 years earlier, or whatever, 20 years earlier. I just don't know what's more right, the system that we had in the 90s where 150 people, or the system that we have now that was like 3 people putting out a magazine. It's probably somewhere we were probably a little too
somewhere in the
bloated.
middle. Yeah. And it was
we were
like,
probably too
and it was
bloated.
like churn, churn, churn. And then it's like, but now it's like everything sounds the same and everyone is covering the same thing. And like, I get into my like broken business model of media is like at the core of so many, I think even like larger, comprehension issues. It's just like, like what, like your public, like there were certain things, right? It's Fashion Week, but you used to be able to tell like Elle from Harper's Bazaar, from Vogue, like even in the tone of writing. And I miss that. Or like, you'd be like, oh yeah, like that's like not the kind of thing we would cover. Even if it's like a big, huge story. Now it's like you see everyone covering everything all the time. And I understand where that is coming from because you got to get the clicks and whatever. But it's like, where's any of the expertise or any of the voice or any of the uniqueness of anything? You can't discern anything from anything.
So where is it going? So I'm encouraged that you are on Substack because I'm not relatively new. I just discovered recently where my lane is in Substack. I've been on Substack for a long time, but I couldn't really figure out how to use it. To me, it's kind of the next generation, I guess, of blogging. And are you bullish? Like you I know you took a little break, but then now you're back and you're doing a lot of stuff and you have paid subscribers and stuff. Do you think it's kind of like a very good place for, like, if you were like to your students at IU, do you tell them like, hey, Substack is a good, Medium and Substack are a good option right now? Maybe even more Substack these days.
I think so. I do. I think, some of them like didn't know about it. And I'm like, this is like low-key narcissism, but also like one of their first assignment, they have to do is like tell me a little pop culture story of them, but like, put a few slides together and just tell me something about yourself, like through the lens of pop culture. Cause to me, it's just never about just the thing. Right. And it can't just be like, these are my 5 favorite songs, and they do incredible, like the first ones that came in, like I cried, like I'm like too soft for all of it. They like impressed me so much. They're mostly juniors and seniors, a lot of seniors. So, then the second one, they have to do a listicle, like pulling out like some observations about We Have Notes. So I also am like, okay, a listicle is a thing that we all, like in 2011, you would have just read 5,000 listicles on BuzzFeed every day in your office. But also I'm like, just bucket in, and I want to, and it's while we've been discussing like the intent of a piece of content. Is it successful in what you think its intent is? Who do you think the audience is? And like, so I also just like, I'm like, listen, you're going to tell me about me. You're going to read, you're going to tell me about yourselves. You're going to read about me. And a bunch of them will be like, oh, I didn't know about Substack. And I think it is getting a little younger. I think there are some younger creators now that they've made like some, and I think that's great. Because my favorite thing is cross-generational stuff. I love when we can find like, of course, because I like a lot of things that I might not be the target demo for.
Well, that's interesting about you. Yeah. You love a lot of like, you love Taylor Swift, and you love like a lot of the new artists and stuff. And so like that's cool. You're always young at heart.
And so there's like a language, I think pop culture is such a common, like a language that you can find commonality in. And so you find your people, but also, I love that I can sit and talk to one of my friends, like, daughters who's a freshman in college, and we are like going deep on The Summer I Turned Pretty, or like the new Taylor album. But then also like, they were like, this is great. I didn't know Substack was a thing. Like, this is like, is this kind of like what blogs used to be? And I'm like, yeah, in a lot of ways it is. And because people can find a space to just write about what they're interested in and don't have to go through, like, that was such a cool thing when blogs first happened, is you didn't have to go through these gatekeepers of Condé Nast and like Hearst. And I think there's, again, something in the middle, like, I love that there's a lot of voices, but also like, where's the expertise? Like, there is like a part that is missing that I wish they could all find space together, you know?
I guess Jane is trying to figure out how to kind of merge what she did at Jane and XOXO Jane and Sassy and stuff and put it
I had a student write something for Jane last semester after she talked to us. And it just so happened that the student had also gone to my high school. And I was just like, this is a very full circle moment. Like, I'm like somehow a teacher, which is wild. And then that this like student, and then, you know, the first place that I really like found a voice, and this person who is still in my life, like, and still inspiring me and is still out there doing stuff too. That's the thing about Jane. Like, and that's my thing also with them. I'm like, you know, if you've got like a vision, then like you can figure it out maybe in a lot of different ways. But I do think Substack is I'm like, where else do we write? Like, where else are words still valued in the way that they are? Like, I'm real long-winded. So like, I get it. And I know if some people don't want to read that much, and that's okay, but I want to write that much sometimes. And there's nowhere else to do
that. So it's like that. I love that it gives you that freedom. But you're right. There's that freedom, and then there's like, sometimes you want to have a place you can go where there's real report. It's not just opinion, right? Or and I guess there's still, you know, the legacy media outlets, but I don't know. I'm like starting to sour on some of the legacy media outlets these days.
But so they're like the victim of like this like churn, and they don't get to do, even the people who work there who are great, like, don't get the time to do, you know, it's like they're beholden to all the like whatever is making money and clicks in ways that like,
so they can't
the creativity out of them too.
You're right. Those stories where you could embed yourself for 3 weeks or a month, you know, or, you know, those are kind of gone now.
I'm like, and Jane was talking about that, like, where can we find, she's like, I don't necessarily want to go back to like, where can we find like a little investment in that? And maybe there is a way, you know, with like an especially
press is trying to do, like, I'm trying to think of some places on, and it's interesting that these experiments are actually happening on Substack, which is encouraging. I feel like for the first time I might be in the right place. I always feel like I get into it a little too late. Like I'm like, oh, crypto, like 2 years too late.
Right. And I've been here for a while, and I started it as just like a recommendations newsletter on Tiny Letter, and it's evolved into like very much more like a blog, and like a lot more vulnerable and personal, but like through the lens of usually pop culture, and just like letting myself be myself more.
Yeah, which is what comes through so much. It's called We Have Notes, by the way. Well, it says it under your name there, but it's really great, and you should definitely subscribe. Maybe even become a paid subscriber. I mean, come on. Let me ask you.
Being unhinged on the internet is kind of fun if you create like kind of a safe little space. And I do find I have, you know, it's very Gen X and elder millennial. There's a range, but I would say like that's like a core.
And I feel like that might be my experience. And I write about Gen X stuff, so I'm going to have an older subscriber base and readership. But it seems to me, and I think I put this once in a story, like TikTok is like the realm of, you know, the Gen Zers, Instagram is millennials, and then it's like Substack seems to be where like the Gen Xers ended up, and like. You know, I don't know. Like you said, your students weren't even aware of it. I think and I don't mind that. I don't mind that there's a place that we can go, right? Because like most pop culture is not made for people our age anymore. That's why we kind of cling on to the stuff from the old days. So it is nice to have a place, but I think it would be great if we also had some younger people on. I mean, I don't even know if younger people read as much as they used to. So
that's the other thing. I think we still like to read things. Like I'm like, I don't want it to be a video. I just want to read the news story. You know, like,
does it always have to be a darn video? Yeah, I know.
Exactly. I'm like, it just can be quiet and I can just read it. Like, I don't need to hear it, but I do love to hear certain things. Like I'm a huge podcast person. I listen to, like, I was
going to ask you about that. You love podcasts. What podcast do you listen to?
So I love,
I have to go to
Let's
like my
see.
phone.
Well, Amy Poehler, of course, everyone's listening to Amy Poehler. I feel like
I haven't
every woman my age is like listening to Amy Poehler.
But
She
does
feels
that
like
annoy
it's
you?
the Gen
Yeah.
XC and the
Oh, that's
best.
cool.
We have like such a, I feel in my parasocial relationship with Amy Poehler that we have, but just the way she approaches also even like the things that are newer, like spending a lot of time on TikTok, but like
Mhm.
having this like real sense of herself as like a Gen X person, but like curious about a lot of other things
Oh,
too.
that's cool. Oh, I should check her
She's
out.
great. I love I listen to Who Weekly. These are like my pop culture podcasts. I love Who Weekly. They're millennial, like elder millennial, but like very come from kind of like the magazine and print space
Oh,
originally,
cool.
like back in the day too. It's all the what's their tagline? It's like everything you need to know about the celebrities you don't. It's like who's and them's. It's very funny.
Yeah.
They have like this journalist, like it's ridiculous, but there is this like journalistic sense to them too. And sometimes they'll get into like, okay, why do you think this person's doing this weird spawn con? And like, and like in ways that I feel like come from the kind of backgrounds that we do. But it's like this, I always say like the unserious isn't always that unserious actually at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then I still love like, How Did This Get Made is like one of my comfort podcasts. I
I
feel
like
like that
those kinds of things. And I love hearing
they're like
how songs
OGs.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. I just listened to Unicorn Girl. That was like one of those like crazy, this lady is like a scammer, you know. I love a scammer. I love a
Yeah.
cult.
I love a good scam or a cult
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Anything about a cult or a scammer, I'm
I
in.
have to do my cult story because I
I
was
listen
in a
still to
cult.
like the Bill Simmons podcast sometimes, even though
Oh, you do?
I
Are
have a
you a sports
love-hate
person?
relationship with him, but like I mean in my head,
Yeah. In your head.
I'm a big sports person too.
Oh,
So
that's
like
cool.
yeah, I'm like all if I'm into something, I'm like
What
psychotically
sports are
into it.
you super into?
So, I mean, I'm from Indiana, so basketball,
Yeah,
big,
of course.
college basketball are my Pacers, my beloved Pacers.
I hear you.
We've had Colts season tickets. My dad has had Colts season
Oh, that's
tickets. So they came to town. We're not the worst this year. That's exciting.
that is exciting.
I was a competitive swimmer, so I will be dorkily watching like swimming when it's not. Everyone only cares about swimming like every 4 years during the Olympics, unless
Well,
you were.
my daughter does water polo, so suddenly I'm like,
Oh, you kind of understand a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
It's an
yeah.
intense sport. But I'll watch kind of any, like now that I'm not a big like watch baseball all the time person, but like I'll watch a playoff game. Like I'll watch
Yeah.
any good game. Am not the most diehard college football person, but I'll have it on. But
That's cool.
I will have football on all day on Sunday. Like I'll go to the Colts game and then I'm watching everything else too. So
All right. So,
I love sports.
let me see if anybody has any questions because I asked if anybody has any questions for Abby. My last question for you. You're a huge Taylor Swift fan.
Yes.
I have not caught the Taylor wave. I don't not like her. I just haven't.
It's
That's
very
fine.
fine. Everyone's always like, "I'm sorry, Abby." I'm like, "It's fine."
No, it's fine. And you know, it's interesting because a lot of people that I know that are my age are huge Taylor Swift. Like there's something about Taylor that resonates with them. Like, I mean, I don't know if you ever worked with Taffy Brodesser Ackner, but you know, when I was in
I wish I had. She's one of my favorite writers ever.
She's great. So when
we beat back and forth sometimes, but we've never met in person. Yeah.
Yes, I know Taffy because amazingly, she was the head of Media Bistro in LA in like 2000 and like
Media Bistro. That's
Media
taking me
Bistro?
back.
I know.
Man, yeah.
And so
Remember
she
when
hired
it
me
first launched? It was like we can have all this information about like who's getting this job where and like whatever.
I know it was a great.
Really?
I still go on their job board every so often and see if there's anything there. But anyway, so she was running that. She wasn't even writing at the time. She was just running.
I didn't even know she did that.
I know it's crazy. And that and in fact, some of her, you know, former so I was a teacher and she got me some assignments, you know, teaching how to do magazine writing or whatever. And, you know, at the time, and we were very close and friendly. I didn't know that she was such a great writer. She had worked at Soap Opera Digest for Bauer Publishing, I guess, out in.
That was like a dream of mine for a while to work.
Right. But she hated it. It was one of her worst experiences. I think she's about that.
I mean, I can imagine that the actual of it, but like I loved it so much because I love soap operas so much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny. Anyway, so why was I bringing up Taffy? Oh, because she loves Taylor Swift and she did a wonderful piece on Taylor Swift. And tell us, okay.
I wrote a whole piece about her piece. Like her piece inspired me to write a whole post.
Right. Everybody
on We Have Notes. I mean, I write about Taylor a lot, but like I particularly like that piece inspired me to write an entire piece.
What should Gen Xers, I assume there's a lot of Gen Xers, like what are we missing if we don't, like, to me, I don't, again, I am not a Taylor hater by any way. I think she's actually kind of puts out a great like product. Like I like her. She's positive. Her music is catchy. I like everything sort of about her. I just don't really, her music doesn't really resonate with me for some reason. And maybe I haven't like gotten into it deep enough. As you can see, I'm a DJ. I love music. I DJ. In fact, I'm DJing. By the way, if you're in Santa Monica tonight, I'm DJing something called the Early Bird Special from 7 to 10.
Where?
It's in Santa Monica at a club called The Room. And
the Room, I know The Room.
You know The Room? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do this party from 7 to 10, and I just play 80s and 90s music, so it's super fun.
That sounds amazing.
It's so fun. But
my friend Elizabeth, do you know Elizabeth Spiridakis? Did you ever know her?
No, but you mentioned Late Seas. You mentioned that somebody's name that you'd worked with at Jane that had the same name as the woman who throws the Early Bird Special, and I wondered if they were sisters. Leitz, L-E-I-T-Z.
Oh, Leitzis? Carrie Leitzis?
Yeah, does she have a sister, Jen?
Is
she from New York?
You know what? Yeah, she might have a sister. Now I'm trying to remember.
I'll have to ask Jen tonight about that. But anyway, I will ask.
Carrie was the photo editor at Jane.
That would be hilarious. I'll ask her.
I
mean, how could it's kind of a coincidence that name doesn't seem like a lot of people would have that name anyway. So
I know, right? I know. And now I'm just like,
but I cut you off about the
no.
What is it? What is it we're not? What is it that you? Why is it as a Gen Xer? What do you think about her?
So I've been into, as we would say in the fandom, since debut, which is what we call her first album, which is actually called Taylor Swift. But I've been into her the whole time when it was
country.
Yeah, like I ran away from like country music, and in my head, I think because I was from Indiana. I'm from Indianapolis. It's just like it's a mid-sized city,
cool.
right? But like from the burbs. But there was this like, especially in, except it doesn't make any sense because I've always been so into like folk and Americana and like all these things that have like a lot of roots in it. But it was also, I think, the kind of country music, like at that moment. Now I'm into a lot of different ones, but it's like, it's not that straight up. It's like, I always liked Johnny Cash and I always liked Dolly, but all the other stuff, I was like, I'm not country, because I didn't want people to think I was like a rube. Like the young me, like 19-year-old me or whatever. But I've always loved it because I think I love real storytelling. It's like what I loved in like a Grateful Dead song or like a Joni Mitchell song, or I have a giant, well, I'm redoing my bedroom right now, but like a giant Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, like huge, the Buckingham Nicks cover, but like one of the outtakes like has been hanging over my bed for like 7 years. It's chaotic energy to bring into your bedroom, but like I love that kind of, well, the lore of it, and like kind of the writing. I think I was just like really interested in the writing when I first heard a song, and I was like, wait, I like love this. And then I've got really into her, and I really, so there's a huge conversation I feel like happening right now, because everyone's like, or not everyone, there's corners of the internet that are like, the writing on this album is not up to snuff. And I'm like, it's a real pop album with Max Martin and Shellback. Like, it's not the dense lyricism of the Tortured Poets department, but like neither is 1989, which even people who hate Taylor Swift are like, they have to kind of go like, style is a banger, it's like a really good pop song. Yeah, it's like for pop, like it's a truly pop album, right? And so is this one. I love it.
So a lot of people are not loving this album for some reason.
And it's interesting. I think this is the thing about Taylor too. She is such a lightning rod. Like, and she kind of has been like, and it's obviously at a very huge scale right now, but she's been very, very famous for quite a long time now. And we are at this, but like, so the conversation, there's a lot of noise, but this is not dissimilar to like every album cycle where it's like, people get very upset. People who don't like her get very upset and are not always able to just scroll on by, just move on along. Like, I don't talk about the things I hate as much as some people who
I don't know why people latch onto that.
But I think to me, it's like the writing has always been like really huge, and just it like tickles this part of my brain, and it's I think what for me is she takes something that may be very specific and like it feels like she's writing about my life, even though I'm like older, right? So it's sometimes for me as a Gen Xer, it's like thinking back about a time, right? So there's a lot of Taylor fans who are in, you know, she's about to turn 36. So there are a huge part of her fandom that is like her age, right? They have
Mhm.
like kind of gone through this all. That's never been me. I've always obviously been
Yeah.
older. So it is like I think her song 15, there are not many songs that I think capture what it feels like to be a 15-year-old girl better
Mm.
than that song, even if I was 30 something when I heard it, when it came out. And I am a nostalgic person. I am a person who loves like kind of pop and melancholy and storytelling. And then, because it is like, people be like, I had a student ask me, and it's like a really fair question. Like, is it all the other stuff or is it the music? And for me, I love some of the other stuff, but I love the music.
The
And
family.
I think this like kind of ballsy like 17-year-old girl who like came on the scene, and then the more I got to like know about her, I love how she conducts herself. I think I love that she's always like paid her crew really well.
Yeah,
She
you're such a
like
good
gave them health insurance when she was like 19.
right.
A lot of those people have been with her for a long time, but it I like, and I what I really liked about the re-records, along with like I am as a creative person, like owning your work, I do understand that on a very
Yeah.
personal level. But for me, it was like this really interesting exercise in, so say like 1989 is an album that originally came out the year that my mom had suddenly passed away. And
Mm.
it had been a really long, hard year. And that was October. It had happened in January. And it was like, I got into it in the way I like felt like a little bit of my old self. But it
Yeah.
was also this album that was about kind of a young woman like moving to New York. Like that's like and I mean, there is Welcome to New York as a song on there, but that's the energy like bubbling through it. And like
It captures something.
we're the new romantics, and it's like this, it's like her friend. And it's just, I was like, I remember what that felt like. But then also there was this element of like, I felt like I was myself a little bit again. And I was like digging into things with like my fan friends the way I used to. Then 1989, Taylor's version comes out almost 10 years later. And like, you know, the point of the re-records was like to make the version sound like as much like the other one, because then they just like could replace it, right? So she wasn't trying to do all new productions, but then we'd have the vault tracks, which were always something new. And I was like, I can look at my like I was like looking back at these different phases, and now I can look back and like, you know, her vocals are a little stronger. She's worked on them, and like my
Right.
voice feels stronger. And
So
I don't know,
she's
I
but you
love.
captured something about her resonates with a lot of different people. Like her life, I guess it's so real that a lot of people can identify with it. Right. That's
She
interesting.
can take this like very specific moment, and I love specificity in writing sometimes, you know,
Mhm.
like it's like really detailed, but then somehow it also feels like she ripped it out of your brain. Or
Mm.
like I'll quote things to my therapist has been my therapist for since my mom died too, so like over 10 years. And so she has heard a lot of Taylor Swift lyrics, because sometimes I'll be like, it's this feeling, you know, it's like when someone can put it into words better than you could. And when someone says that to me, it's like such a compliment.
Yeah.
But she just, I don't know, she captures something. And I think like in Taffy's piece, what I loved so much, I could get choked up even just thinking
Mhm.
about it. But when she's like, you know, maybe we just like, we are all these versions of ourselves, and that we don't have to like be ashamed of our old eras and our old, like we are all that, all the Abbeys that I've been like can coexist. And there's something like very, I don't know, I just like get really inspired by her too. Like her
That's
writing
wonderful.
really inspires me, how prolific she is. She's really dorky and funny, and I think that's hard to, if you don't like know there's also like a breadth of work where it's not just breakup songs, it's not just this, like the so many of the songs that like I was thinking about this week are about being left out. Like, and I think people look at her and go like, oh, you must have been popular forever. But like, if you were like the girl writing like lyrics in calligraphy, like in your notebook in seventh grade, like people don't think that's cool, even if you're cute, like,
Yeah.
and blonde. And I don't know. I find,
Well, that's really
and I
no. I
found so many great friends in I find I love the community. Listen, there are toxic corners of any group of people, and there are certainly like I'm not there's people who behave in ways that I would not, even if I was 17, you know. But I have found I've made dear friends in the fandom, like
Oh,
this
that's so wonderful.
shared bond. And I do think like the lore and the things and the clues and the whatever, and sometimes things spin out of control. And I'm like, it's usually not that deep. My dream is for her to someday do a song called Occam's Razor. Just like she can go with it however she wants. But there is like lore and there is like history and there is, I don't
Mhm.
know, it's like all different layers of storytelling that she does. And I just think it's
That's so
really
cool. Well,
interesting.
that's the best explanation that I've heard of why people, what it is about Taylor Swift that people love so much, especially people who are not her necessarily, like you would think her like standard audience, which is like, and the fact that she can mean as much to you as she does to my daughter, who's 16, although my daughter is getting a little bit, I think, over Taylor. But interestingly enough, and maybe it's just because she's like, well, I liked Taylor when I was 15 and now I'm 16. And so,
Well, that, yeah. And
there's
also
that whole,
she might have
yeah,
different tastes. And that's my thing.
I'm
I'm
sure
like,
she'll always,
you
yeah.
evolve. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's also suddenly gotten into country music, much to my horror. But I think not to my horror. I joke with her because I'm just
Yeah.
like, I cannot believe, because it's just a music that I know nothing about. But
What does she
I also
like?
appreciate.
What is she like in
Oh
country for you?
God, I wish I knew.
Like Casey, like Casey
No,
Musgrave? Like,
yeah, she loves Casey Musgraves, but she
yeah,
even
me
goes like deep with some of the guys. I mean, some of it's pretty pop. She likes it. I wish I could tell you who. I mean, she
no,
plays it
that's okay. I
guitar.
just thought something like, what are the 16-year-olds doing?
I know, I know. She's very cool, and she
That's
sends
cool.
me
I bet she
things
is.
all the time. Like, in fact, I can look at my phone, the stuff we listen to in the car. I mean, it's like really good. She always gives me like from like the dance music stuff to the country to like she's very into like music.
Well,
And
and
my
like
son is a professional musician, so
I love like remembering that time too, and just like I'm always
oh,
like,
it's so
be into
fun.
what you're into. Like my whole thing is like I don't care if someone doesn't like Taylor Swift, or like if they're a fan
Yeah,
and they don't like this album. That's great. Just like don't be weird about it. Like
yeah.
don't
Like,
be
why
an
do you care?
asshole, and like don't
Is there
like
any
try to find some reason to twist yourself into a knot to like hate her.
right?
Just like don't. It's okay. Just don't like it. You don't like it. It's
Is
fine.
there any equivalent of Taylor Swift from our eras?
Me.
Like, is there
No.
any? I don't think so. I'm trying to think if there's anybody like she's
Like
not
the
like Madonna. She's not like
like Madonna was so different. Like Madonna was dominant in
yeah,
ways that I think are similar in her
Cyndi
peak.
Lauper. Like Cyndi Lauper doesn't have the kind of canon of songs. I mean, Cyndi Lauper's a great storyteller. I don't know if her songs are. I just went to a Cyndi Lauper concert and she tells great
Did you go
stories.
at the bowl?
Yeah, did you go to that one?
No, but I wanted to.
That was
Did you go
incredible.
to Joni Mitchell at the bowl last fall?
No, but my wife did.
I
Yeah.
did. I was
You
there.
did?
The
Yeah,
first,
that was
yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
Ugh,
I mean,
I never
she
thought I
brought
was gonna
Joni
get
Mitchell
to.
out. Joni Mitchell came out on the stage at the Cyndi Lauper concert. She brought out Cher. She brought out Joni Mitchell. She didn't
Yeah,
tell
I
us who
saw
was coming.
clips.
Yeah, it
It
was
looked
incredible.
amazing. So
It was
that's my thing. It's like also it's like Taylor feels like in a
yeah, like
lineage of like female like, storytellers that I have really loved. And like, Steve, I love when these things come together. And like Stevie wrote like a poem that's in the like on the vinyl of Tortured Poets, and like
can I tell you something that will make you love Taylor Swift even more than you already do?
yeah. Yeah.
And this is the reason I adore her. So I
Yeah.
had a very good friend who died of COVID. His name was Adam Schlesinger. You might have heard of him. He was
Oh, yeah, I definitely
Fountains
recognize
of
the
Wayne.
name. I'm so
Yeah, he was
sorry. Yeah.
he was in Fountains of Wayne, and we grew up together. He's my oldest friend. It's very, very sad. And when he died, he didn't know Taylor. I mean, he was very connected in the music business, but I don't think he ever had met Taylor. Turned out she was a big fan of his music and a big fan of. So when he died, she wrote his kids at the time, who were like maybe 12 and 13, maybe, I mean, just devastated by the loss of their dad. She wrote them a letter. She hand painted it was like a postcard where she made a little image with like a tree, and it was like she did a whole thing, and then she wrote, your dad meant so much. We didn't know each other, but like me growing up, me and my brother always used to listen to Fountains of Wayne's albums, and we love his lyrics, and we just loved his music. And if you ever are in town and you want to come to a show, just let me know, and I'll be sure to get you guys in. And I'd love to meet you. And I'm just so sorry for your loss. And it's just the fact that one of the most famous, probably the most famous person in the world, would take time to write a letter to two kids that she doesn't even know about her father, who she had never even met. It just says a million things about her.
That sounds very like Taylor. It's gonna make me
Yeah.
cry. I also like volunteer at like a grief camp, like so like
Yeah.
kids who've lost like right. But like that's, I mean, and she's also like a real fan of music. Like
Yeah.
Taylor like loves
Love
music, and like when you see her at awards, and like when people discuss like you know, and now obviously like I understand that people get sick of like the conversation, but like she can't always control, like she's not always like, right now she's in an album promo cycle, but like
right.
because she gets clicks is not like her fault, like that she's in the headlines as much as she is, you know.
I
But
don't feel like he wants. I mean, of course, she's probably, got
like
some
when
ego.
she's,
How
but
could you
like
not
about the
have
other
ego if you're
stuff,
close?
you know.
Yeah.
But she like at the Grammys or at the VMAs, and she has always been just like, she is gonna white girl dance and she's gonna know the words to every song, and it's not fake. She loves music, and so I'm a huge Harry Styles person too.
So is
And
my daughter, but then now it's also kind of off of Harry Styles, but who knows?
well, I mean, he hasn't had a new album in 3 years, so you never
Yeah,
know.
true. You never know.
I went to Love on Tour 20 times. Like I'm a lunatic. I went to the Eras Tour 8 times. But like I mean, and they obviously dated when they were like young for a
Yeah.
minute. And he did inspire some wonderful songs on 1989, but they're like cool. Like that wasn't like a deep, you know, deep pain or whatever. And like when he won Album of the Year, and like people were chirping in the back, it was not Beyonce and her people, but you could hear a little heckling happening because people were upset that Beyonce didn't win, which I think is very fair. I'm a huge Beyonce person too.
Yeah.
But Taylor was the one person like standing up and clapping. Like if no one is dancing, because you know, you've probably, those award show rooms can be very weird, and the coolest performance can be happening, but like the energy in the room is not always like you're at a show, like at a concert. And like I love that if they look out there, like Taylor will be bopping to the song, or she will be standing up and clapping. And I think that is like something that
music. Yeah.
if you don't really like, you don't have to be into her, but I think just like, no one has
By the way,
to be
she probably loves
about
most of the music I love. I mean, she loves 80s music. I'm sure she loves.
She does. I mean, I'm sure, I can't imagine how, I mean, like she interpolates Father Figure on this album.
Yeah.
And it is a song called Father Figure. I was really nervous about it because I was like, oh, don't just do like a whole sample, like, and then I'm like obsessed. It's really good. But like, there's also this very like,
I haven't heard the riff.
Lenny Kravitz-y guitar riff in like one of the songs. Like I don't know. I enjoy her so much. She brings so much joy into my life, and I love to cry and dance and then cry and then dance.
I'm so glad. Well, listen, I've kept you here almost an hour and a half. It's
so fun. Could talk.
It flew by. You are the best. And Abby,
you're the best. Okay, well, I'm gonna maybe start doing some lives, and then you'll have to
please do it, and we can just exchange notes. We can exchange notes because I have notes too.
Love that.
And I don't. Yes, and I'm curious to hear, more. I mean, we could talk for another hour and a half. Let me see if there's any questions from our. Look at that, we got 58 people looking on, and I'm sure there'll be.
Exciting. I love that.
And I will post this on Substack probably tomorrow, or what is today? Friday. I'll probably do it on Monday.
I'm working on my Taylor, finishing up my.
Oh, I'm excited. Well, I'll definitely reach back that,
so and it'll come out this weekend for sure.
But
Taylor, watching, I think I can embed this. I'm sure I'll figure it out in Substack.
Yes, you can. It's intuitive. Pretty easy to do. Yeah. And Taylor, if you're watching, this is I have this board which I forgot about. Can you hear that? You can hear that, right? Yeah. And then I'm gonna put off this is my closing music because it is Friday, and whenever there's Friday. Whenever it's Friday, you know that you're going to find Small Talk Live because Friday we're in love. And it has been really a treat having Abby Gardner on the phone. She is the creator of We Have Notes and so many other things. So Abby, it's great having you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
All right. Until next week, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.